Redditors who have been on a reality TV show such as Hardcore Porn or Pimp My Ride or Porn Stars, how fake was it? Never been to the Porn Stars store, but one of my customers told me about going there. This must have been 4 years ago. They said they had to wait in line to go into the store, and they all pitched in $100 to have Chumley come out from the back room. A family acquaintance had a house built for their disabled adopted kids from Extreme Home Makeover. I think Ty was a dong, but they were just so grateful to have the house that they didn't dwell on the negative aspects. My fraternity helped in a build of a house for that show here in our town. Can confirm, Ty is a dong. He just acts like he's God's gift to the world, and that he's too good to talk to you. Also, he doesn't do jack crap towards the build. They go off kind of like a Habitat for Humanity build. It was still a cool experience. Had a friend on an MTV show where one person goes on a date with 2 different people at the same time, and they try and create conflict between the 2 daters and make them fight for the one person. He said that it took forever to shoot because they were told to be themselves, but they both absolutely hated the girl and kept making fun of her, so there was very little conflict, so they finally had to script things in for them to say. My friend won the real date with the girl and she did give him her number, but he said no thanks and went and got drunk with the other guy, where they continued just making jokes about the lady. I feel like this would have been a way better episode. Not sure if this qualifies as a reality TV show, but here goes. The show is called Restaurant Takeover. I believe it is restaurants only in Canada, but may be confined to a smaller area. The premise of the show is like Kitchen Nightmares, only shittier. Failing restaurant, not enough business, family run, decor is blah, food is mediocre, etc. Celebrity chef along with an interior designer contractor comes in and they check the place out, including food. They proceed to fix the place in terms of the menu and the interior exterior aesthetic. Owners are happy. The end. I work as a cook and have for 8 years, and a chef of mine calls me up seeing if I needed some extra cash, which I did. Without even asking about it, I agreed to it, and then he explained. Instant regrets. Most cooks chefs try to stray away from selling out as soon as possible. Majority hate the idea of celebrity chefs, with a few exceptions. The episode I worked on had a celebrity chef picked already, and I was just the one to prepare everything that was to be shown and filmed. I was never actually on film. I was never even credited. I was even paid late. They said it would be 2 weeks check in the mail and it ended up being 3. Plus they asked for branch checking info to do a direct deposit. The celebrity chef didn't do anything to help me. He spent most of his time, honestly, having makeup redone and flirting with the ladies on set, owner of the restaurant included. Anyways, all the food on the episode was prepared by me, and even then, only to the point where it looked correct. No need to taste anything. I didn't even freaking have salt and pepper. Worst part is half the crap I prepped wasn't even used. It was annoying because you would think it was easy since they didn't give a frick about the actual flavor of the food, only the looks. Heck no, they were giving me ridiculous time constraints because they were rushing filming and were doing things so haphazardly. I don't want to ramble on, but it just makes everything on these kinds of shows seem fake. I should have never done it. Being a passionate cook and then doing this filming bulls just drains the soul ever so slightly. That was my run-in with food and television. TLDR. Did an episode of a restaurant makeover type show. Celebrity chef didn't do anything. I did all the prep cooking work. Makes food in television seem super fake and unappealing now. Obligatory, not me but my cousin. She was on Hex Kitchen and said that they would film for over 10 hours on a day, then would go to sleep around 11 PM only to get woken up at 2 AM to film again to make them more irritable. The producers would purposely bring up topics to create drama within the chefs. They tapped when they answered the door in the beginning a couple times to make them seem more surprised. They portrayed my cousin as the classic hot blonde. It was certainly more of a reality TV show than a cooking show. I was on a reality show in the early 2000s that focused on Generation Z's dealing with unemployment during the recession. The producers edited out all mentions of my degrees, work experience, and professional licensing. They claimed I drove a luxury vehicle to the taping when in fact I didn't own a car and used public transportation. My small studio apartment was described as a luxury loft. They made me change out of my street clothes and into a designer outfit that cost more than 2 years of rent, complete with Chloe handbag and dramatic diamond jewelry. They use binder clips along the back seams of our clothing to make it look custom tailored. Several panelists were full-time students or graduate students who lost their jobs, but the producers edited out all mention of academics and made it sound as though no one was engaged in any time off schooling or job training. They asked us a lot of pointed questions about whether we were respectful to our bosses, stole from our companies, lies on our resumes, fabricated degrees, cheated on licensing exams, or quit for the unemployment benefits. We were a bunch of 20 and 30 something professionals pushing through a rough economy to the best of our abilities. They edited us to sound like whiny babies who were about to cry at the prospect of not vacationing in the Maldives that season. So yeah, pretty fake. My friend was on Maid. It was actually pretty genuine. Except she didn't have anything she genuinely wanted to be made into and just chose something she thought sounded interesting. She did work really hard at it during the show, though. The show wanted her to act like the outcast of her siblings, and portrayed them as a bit bitchy when they aren't, and like they always leave her out when in reality they're all very close. But aside from that, it was mostly all real. I do recall not knowing MTV was there one day. I'm friends with her siblings as well, so I kind of ran into the room they were filming in to ask her what she was doing. The producers wanted me to sign a form and come in again asking her the same question, but this time have her explain her progress to me. I felt bad for ruining their shot, but said no because I didn't want to be on TV. Was not on hardcore porn, Detroit, but have a great true story to tell about meeting the cast and owner. 3 years ago I was carjacked in the suburbs of Detroit. Typical carjack story. Two assailants force me out of vehicle and drive away. Long story short, 2 guys steal my SUV. See that I have awesome golf clubs and vehicle. Try to pawn my clubs at hardcore porn in Detroit, and in doing so sign contracts to appear on TV. Well, they start filming one of the guys and he tells a sob story about selling golf clubs to pay for his sister's medicine, and then he starts swinging my golf clubs badly and left-handed. My clubs were right-handed. Detective law. I can't make this crap up. Tracks down the vehicle, follows his leads, and finally ends up at hardcore porn and is able to rewatch the film of idiot thieves who stole my stuff, then provided real names and addresses of where to be found. One bad guy turns in the other. Both end up doing 3 years for unlawfully driving away a vehicle. Both were recently released on parole. One died after release. I got to meet the owner of hardcore porn and take photos while recovering my golf clubs. He was shady as frick, but that is another story. I worked on a cruise ship when they filmed Undercover Boss. The CEO pretended to be doing a documentary and had various crew members train him for a few hours. While no one was expressly told what the gig was, the show had already been going on for a year, so we all sort of knew what was up. When they were doing the shooting, he claimed to stay in a crew cabin to get a real feel for how it was to be a crew member. Not only did they use a passenger cabin in the shot, he didn't even stay there. He stayed in the grand penthouse. When they did the reveal that he was actually the CEO, they did like 5 shots of the crew's surprise. His big gesture at the end was $150,000 towards crew welfare, pays for parties, day trips, etc. It came to like $8 per crew member when you consider how many crew members there are. Those that were featured, and even one who got cut from the show, on my ship did get an all expense paid European cruise, so that was nice for them at least, provided they wanted to go on a cruise on their vacation from working on a cruise ship. I was on Miami Inc. The only parts that were staged were the entrances and exits to the shop. I had to do them a few times because the crowd surrounding the shop. I had to wear the same clothes twice to look like I did the tattoo in 2 sessions, but the reality it was 3 8-hour sessions. Otherwise it was a really cool experience. Everyone in the shop was the same as in TV. Maybe a little forced drama for TV's sake, but great experience. The work was great and behind the scenes staff were great. I briefly worked on Cajun Porn Stars, the southern spin-off of Porn Stars. I can't speak for how the other shows do it, but as far as I know the same production company that shoots the original Pawn Stars was also responsible for the spin-off, so I don't imagine the methods are too different. The items are real. I saw some really fascinating stuff brought in by genuinely excited normal people. The deals, however, were fiction. I watched them shoot multiple endings on several occasions. The seller would be told to reach a certain number, or aim for no deal at all, and then they'd improvise a negotiation scene over the course of the take. The director would then have them repeat this process with various end results to give them options in editing. It was exactly as awkward to watch as you'd expect, and I'm not sure I ever saw the shop actually buy anything off screen or on. There was also a guy that worked at the shop that the show portrayed as a stereotypical backwards idiot for comic relief. The guy was actually pretty articulate and genuinely nice, and he was essentially just acting. That show lasted about 3 seasons before it got canned, and last I heard the shop owed the city over $100K for a nonsensical lawsuit they filed after the show got cancelled. None of the locals I met had anything good to say about the shop's staff, so I'm not too surprised. I worked on a couple of low-key reality shows a while ago. This is what I learned from the people who worked on other shows. Each show has a team of story producers who stand behind the cameramen with walkies telling them to get specific shots. As the reality is happening, the story producers are there to make sure they're getting the shots they need to make whatever story for the episode. It's really hard to make something that didn't happen, but it's not too hard to change an emotion or a mood within what happened. Like when a woman doesn't like seeing the guy kiss the other woman. Just use some out of context shots and boom. Mostly everything that people say on a show is what they said, but sentences can be taken out of context. Sometimes if the editor is good they can frankenbite, which means they can take specific words to make a new sentence. This is rare because it's pretty hard to do, and you have to find a place to put it, usually off camera and subtitled. Producers will often talk crap in private interviews to get reactions. Did you hear that so and so said this about you? Booze also helps fuel drama, and they cast people who are going to be dramatic anyway. Producers will also select people to be on the show. Like Pawn Stars, the producers select which customers get to be on the show. With hardcore porn, it's the same thing, but more for a dramatic event rather than someone who has something interesting. When it comes to makeover shows, it varies. You could either have a Pimp My Ride, which did cosmetic fixes to cars, or an Overhaulin', where they did a full resto mod on the car. It just depends on the show. However, if it's a game show, or any show where you win money, the federal government sends a rep to make sure the game is fair. There's laws against rigged gamma shows. I'm a little late, but my family was on World's Strictest Parents. We hosted 2 rebellious teenagers in our allegedly really strict home. No clue why they picked us. BC, we aren't psychos like most of the families I've seen on a show. Anyways, the producers were bummed. BC, the kids actually liked us and we got along with them. So the producers had to go up to the kids and convince them to get angry for no reason and cause drama. It was kind of pathetic. We're still close with the 2 teenagers and talk to them often. My friend knows someone who works on the set of a reality show where celebs invite each other for dinner, and, because of all the alcohol, they have to do a lot of creative editing to make it seem like they actually get along. I was on Sesame Street when I was 6. They came to my school to ask us about ducks and I was picked to talk about them during a segment. All I remember is getting really upset because I had a lot more to say about ducks than they were willing to film. When the episode aired, I only had 2 2-second clips spliced into a segment, and I was crushed. I wasn't on the show, but I bought something that was featured on hardcore porn. Turns out the biggest way they get interesting items is by scouring Craigslist and eBay. The collection I bought was on Craigslist. They emailed the seller and asked if he could come back in at a specific date and time to have his collection verified and filmed, and they offered to pay him $1,500 for his time. I paid $1,800 for the collection, and he got to keep it. It was a dream situation for the seller. He said everyone on the show was a jerk, like the show portrays them, but that filming was quick. Everything was over in about 2 hours, and he got a check in the mail 6 weeks later. It worked out well for me because he had already gotten $1,500 for his item, so it was easier to negotiate down from $3,000. TV producer here, 90% fake. If you have a good showrunner, they will soft script the whole thing and execute efficiently. If you have a crappy showrunner that thinks they're the best thing since sliced bread, they will try to shoot everything real and waste weeks upon weeks of shooting, forcing a number of pickups and reducing the profit of the series. When guests come in to be on the show, they are basically told how the interaction will go, then action, and you get as many takes as you need to get the scene locked. Occasionally something goes wrong that ends up playing well on camera, or someone has an improv moment that works, but it's rare. Then you shoot real fake interviews with everyone to move the story along, and most of it is guided, with about 80% being just say this. I'm way too late on this, so I doubt many people will see it, but I went on the doctor's show after my whole man with no butt crack story went viral. See my top post history for more info. Got a call from CBS a couple days after everything went down, and they asked me to come out to California for their What the Health segment. Everything on the actual set was real, essentially just an interview, but the little montage backstory beforehand was completely set up and fake. They rented a house to pretend it was mine. They asked me to act like I was in more pain than I really was. I had walk around the pool that I don't own and reflect on my difficult life. It was super awkward for someone with zero acting experience, but it was also a ton of fun. They flew my wife and I out for free, put us up in the Roosevelt Hotel, and gave us a certain spending amount every day for reimbursement. They didn't pay me anything, but they did reimburse me for lost wages from work since I had to be out there for a few days. All in all, it was really cool because I essentially got a free vacation for my wife and I, all expenses paid. Plus, we got to go on a legit television set, which was pretty cool. I was on a health show in the UK called Body Spies with my friend and flatmate. We were doing a charity climb of Kilimanjaro and thought it would be good publicity. Ended up airing after we came back, so was of no benefit to us, and the whole thing was just utterly contrived. Icing on the cake was they lost our consent forms after we'd shot everything 3 full 8-10 hour days over 3 weeks. We told them we'd sign them again for a donation to the charity. The company responded by making one of the producers phone us up and tell us she'd be fired if we didn't sign them. Classy. The charity in this case was Emily Gets to Keep Her Job. Undercover boss. They came to our place, interviewed employees and picked the ones they wanted to do the show. It was obviously a TV crew and we all knew what show. The person they picked was a jerk that worked up a stupid sob story for the cameras about barely affording to get by or whatever. If you haven't realized it, Undercover Boss is just an hour-long commercial. I also know someone that was on a History Channel program about Nostradamus. Forgot the show's name. He said the show edited so much footage to make it look like he was talking about things he wasn't talking about. They ask a few hours of questions and then build their narrative from that. I was sued once. Got a letter from Judge Joe Brown that if we came on the show they would pay the lawsuit regardless of who won. I worked on American Ninja Warrior once, and that show is the realest reality show I've ever seen. Contestants get one run on the course, and when you're out, you're out. The footage when the contestants tell their stories beforehand, they film those a few times, but that's just because the contestants get more comfortable sharing their story by the 3rd time they've had to repeat it. The show doesn't script their story into what they want it to be. Had a friend who was on MTV's Catfish. The guy who was catfishing her was the one who applied for them to be on the show. They barely knew each other prior to signing up and had to force some fake conversations so they could be used on the show. I was on hardcore porn in 2011. A friend of mine told me they had killer deals on used home theater systems, and I was looking for a receiver for my new Onkyo 5.1 speakers I had drunkenly purchased on Amazon the night prior. This is usually how I make all of my expensive purchases. We arrived on a brisk February afternoon. The parking lot filled to the brim with cars, so I had to park in the back. There was an extremely long line of people going out the door. I learned that this line was for people trying to pawn sell items. There was another entrance for showroom customers. As my friend and I approached the entrance, some guy explodes out of the exit for the showroom, and I swear to Christ this guy is on drugs, and he is making a beeline for me. I swear the dude is about to random act of violent me. As this gentleman is full chat approaching my friend and I notice a camera crew off to the side on intercept. It's about to go down. Frick those guys. They just want to take your crap. They won't give you fricking anything and will ACT like your junk is garbage. This guy is tripping out, eyes bugging out of his head, spitting when he is talking. As his round comes to an end, a microphone bone makes its way down to my face, and I responded, calmly and concisely, "I just came here to buy stuff," I said. Then I casually walk past the malfunctioning human being and enter the showroom. As I shop through their stereo aisle, I was met by a chuckling producer. "I need you to sign a consent form." That moment outside was way too funny. I gladly signed my form. They took a photo of me holding a number, and I convinced the guy running the home theater section to sell me a bad but Sony 5.1 receiver for $75 that was practically brand new. 10/10, would do again. My sister Julie was on The Real World. Me and my entire family went down to visit her. Everyone in the cast knows they better create drama or they won't get lots of airtime. My sister had a really unique storyline as she was Mormon. We were all Mormon. Julie was really excited for us to come down, but she also gave the show a ton of footage of her being annoyed we're coming, setting the stage. When we got down there she started inventing issues and even picked a big fight with my dad. I remember sitting on the couch thinking, what is she talking about? It was really funny. When our family was leaving, the producers begged us to stay, offered us money. When the show aired, my family had like 4 episodes. Julie was by far the most successful cast member. These shows don't pay well, but she made ton of money on her celebrity. Colleges paid her big money to come to the school and be a motivational speaker. Really, she just talked about the show. Oh, and no one in the family had any hard feelings about the fight. We all knew it was drama she made up for the camera, and it worked. What's funny is she told us about other dramas other cast members invented but never got airtime. Julie and I are not Mormon anymore, but not because of the show. I went into the porn stars shop when I was in Las Vegas. They have a line on the sidewalk to get in, bouncers at the door, and none of the cast in the store. The place is pretty much packed all the time. So my guess is that if someone brings a really interesting item in, then employees have them come back in a week and clear out the store for filming. Either that, or none of the items are actually from real customers. I was on Made on MTV. Everything was pretty real. The show was a bit on rails. We couldn't go anywhere without asking MTV. They would then have to get the proper permits to film. Phone calls are all fake because we had to use a producer's phone. He'd basically call us and say X is going to call you, and you have to say why. Producers were real frickin' cool, so we could kind of tell if we were doing something they liked, and we sort of faked it ourselves without any network guidance. We honestly just wanted to make a good episode of TV. I can write so much about this. They filmed for months, but I feel like this is too far down for people to care. My brother was just in another reality TV show that aired a few days ago. It's the 3rd or 4th he's been in. Without giving too many details, so he wouldn't get in trouble and so the show won't get ruined too early. It's insanely fake. He was given a new name and backstory, and even his wife in the TV show is some random actress he's never met that is married to someone else. They set up 90% of the stuff in his house specifically for the show. The only real parts of the show are his dogs and his house, as in the house itself. A lot of details were changed, and NBSP. It's not even just this show that is super fake. As I said before, he has been in several and all of them have done the same thing. The first one I remember him on was Room Raiders. Pretty old now, but it was on MTV back in like 04 or around then. They did use his room, but they staged almost everything. All the significant things that the girl would comment on or look at were all placed there by the crew, so it was all pre-planned and fake. I am happy the dogs are real. I have a friend who worked at a place that was featured on Kitchen Nightmares a few years ago and appeared a couple times in the episode itself. Basically, they shut down the restaurant for 2 or 3 days to do the filming. He didn't express the things were especially fake, except that the owner only went along with what Gordon was telling him, and did his best to look good on TV, and didn't actually change anything after he left. In the end, said owner skipped town without paying the rent. My friend was on Chop. They opened their ingredients twice. First to decide their meal, and the second for the camera. They still have to act surprised for the camera though. I had a friend who auditioned for The Voice on the 2nd season, I think. He has a beautiful voice but was told his look wasn't right for the show. Always thought that was pretty stupid. What they mean is that he's not outrageously attractive but also not deformed enough to have a good sob story. Perfectly average just won't cut it. Has anyone been on Impractical Jokers? How real is it? Especially in the later seasons. Since they've become quite popular, don't people recognize them on the street while they are doing various challenges? There's videos on YouTube showing them getting recognized during filming. I'm sure it's harder for them to film segments now. A colleague of mine was on a weight loss show, and a few of us from work were involved in it. The producers called and asked if they could interview me about my colleague. They filmed the presenter coming to my door and introducing himself to me about 5 times. Never told me what to say or anything though. Not sure about my colleague, but would guess her and her family were interviewed many times with the same questions till they edited together the answers they wanted. A buddy of mine was on Big Brother Canada. He said pretty much everything is real. He also said that once people are voted out they have to stay in a different house for the remainder of the show, which doesn't have cameras. Apparently some freaky crap goes down once people get there. My best friend's sister was on the People's Court about 10 years ago. The lawsuit was real, as it was between her and a neighbor she was sort of friends with, but the producers had them embellish many details, gave them lines, and they used clever editing to make them look like they were arguing and such. In one bit, my friend's sister was reading a text message the other girl had sent, and they spliced around it to make it seem like she was insulting her there in the courtroom and Judge Millian chewed her out, which apparently was an insert filmed later. They filmed about an hour's worth and it was edited down to 21 minutes. All 4 of us watched the show the afternoon it aired. Seeing their reaction to crap they edited and pieced together was great. I was on Cash Cab. The whole setup is staged, including where I wanted to go. My destination wasn't far enough to film everything. The questions and rules are real. The money at the end is a prop. You get the funds wired to you after taxes etc are withheld and give back all the posed money. I was in the audience for a Top Chef episode. Many challenges are filmed in the studio, but this one was in public. It was all real. We could see the countdown timer, and we were provided games to play while we watched them cook. Once they finished we were allowed to go to every table to try their food, and even get seconds if we liked it. Cameramen were walking around trying to get audience reactions as they ate the food while the chef explained what they were eating. At some point I finally saw the judges working their way through the crowds going from table to table. Then the event ended. Pretty straightforward and nothing was forced. Had a great time. Not me, but a friend of mine participated recently on a show where a family member goes to other family house and other member of the other house goes with them. She told me that most of the time, the reactions were fake. Producers told them when they have to get angry with each other for the sake of the program. They had to seem in front of the camera that they didn't get along well, but in reality everybody was very friendly. My friend was on intervention. We have the same genetic condition and live with severe pain. Do that really pee me off. They lied to get her on the show, saying it was a documentary about chronic pain patients. Then they forced her to take medicine when she didn't need it just to get shots of her using for the show. Then of course they editing everything to make her look batshit insane. Her episode doesn't have a several months later segment at the end because when they sent her to rehab they realized she was in legitimate pain and actually increased her meds. I worked in the film industry and I understand you need to edit things to fit a narrative, but lying to someone to get them on camera and editing it to make them look bad is pretty crappy emo. Just as a quick, long thing, the house we bought had gone through one of those makeover shows for selling houses. They had only installed one of 2 water filters. Only half of the exterior of the house was painted. The balcony wasn't sealed properly and is now a safety hazard with several holes in the flooring and mushrooms growing on it. And only 2 rooms were refloored and the rest were left as is. The garden was also very overgrown and literally has required several years of work to even get some of it cleared. The shower wasn't sealed properly and began to peel and we had a 2-month battle to get them to fix it. The cabinets started falling apart due to cheap paint and hinges. And they even held an auction for the house even after we had already bought it 2 weeks prior. TLDR. Don't get a house refurbished on a TV show. I had a friend who worked in a restaurant where they were going to film a scene for the reality show Made in Chelsea, and apparently even the food on the table is staged. They don't get it from the restaurant it's brought by production. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.